Take it away, Amanda.
Awesome. Thanks, Celine. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Build and Preserve, Creating a Wellness Toolkit. There we go. Okay, so I'm Amanda Flores, and I get the honor of working at the Native Resource Center as the coordinator. My pronouns are she and her, and here is my email if you would like to contact me.
Similarly, I am also the coordinator at the Women's Resource Center. Use they, them pronouns, and my email is also there in case you'd like to get in touch with us for any reason.
All right, so before we begin, I would like to go over our San Diego State University land acknowledgement and beyond. So for millennial, the Kumeyaay people have been part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. We would like to acknowledge the custodians of this land, the Kumeyaay people, and their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and respect their continuing resilience, culture, strength, and capacity, and strive to promote the balance and harmony of the Kumeyaay people with this land. Beyond land acknowledgements, we would like to encourage you to redistribute any amount and medium of your wealth, including time, energy, capacity for learning new knowledge, volunteer hours, to learning more about the indigenous lands and cultures whom you may occupy. Here's a few different resources to follow. Great, thank you. Okay, so we just wanted to get an idea of who we have in our room today. So if you would be willing, we'd really appreciate it for you to, you could either unmute and say your name and pronouns, major, anything related to SDSU, and what do you look forward to most each day? If you don't want to unmute, that's fine. You could also put it in the chat, but we would really like to hear your voices too. And so glad you can be here today. All right, we'll get started. Okay, so our next hour together, we get to go over some mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies. And our bodies are made of 4 distinct parts, right? Then we'll move on to building a toolkit, and then how we can preserve that toolkit. First, we're going to start with our mental body, nourish to flourish, and easing our minds. So our mental body is where we house all of our thoughts, our beliefs, opinions, and a sense of value. There's a lot stored in our mental body. Our emotional body, so I am enough. I love this little, I am enough, I am enough. I think it's something that we have to continuously repeat as we go through this world. But how do we release our emotions? Emotional body. A bit more on emotional body. Our emotional body is where we house our lived experiences and the feelings attached to them. So can you imagine all of everything that we ever go through is stored in our emotional body? That's a lot of emotions in one place. And then our physical body, transforming energy. So physical body is our skin and everything under the skin, including the brain, organs, everything right inside it is stored in our physical body. I love this. Western medical culture places emphasis on this body, our emphasis on the body, and that it is not enough to, that it not have to experience pain or discomfort. So what that means is that we have medical doctors, we have doctors that help us with so many things related to our physical body. but actually not as many for like spiritual and emotional body. Okay, so building a toolkit. And I think this is Celine, this is where we kind of, okay, go over the next step. Okay.
Did you want to talk at all, sorry, about the spiritual body and or, yeah, ways we can relate to it?
Yeah, so spiritual body, and I think there might have been a slide that got, I don't know if it maybe got misplaced or something, but the spiritual body is also very important, and it's where, did it get, where did our spiritual body go? Okay, so our spiritual body is just as important as the mental, emotional, and physical. Spiritual body is where, if you're, you know, it's your spirit within, it's what's your beliefs, it's where you go to in yourself to whatever it is. It could be spiritually, religious, mindfulness. It's that place within you, and it's very important. It's one of my my hugest components of myself that I have tried to expand and evolved my entire life. And I feel like I finally really started to get that point, to that point, the last 4 or 5 years. So thank you for reminding me about spiritual body. It's so important.
Thank you. We're going to move now into then thinking about building a toolkit. And if you have paper, pencil, paper, and something to write with, and or you want to be typing on your laptop, like notes for this section, we're going to, co-create a toolkit together individually for each of us. So that'll be helpful. Give us a second to grab writing utensils, something to write with. And then just to get the ball flowing or the ball rolling and ideas flowing a little bit, let's think about helpful tools maybe. And just when we think about wellness and how to supplement our own wellness, what are just some basic, quick, easy things that might help us recharge, refresh? So these are just quick things that maybe you can relate to, maybe you can add to this list as well. One would be hitting the pause button, right? Like taking the time that you need. If you need to slow down, find your day's really hectic, maybe you don't have time in between meetings, but you could take a deep breath in between meetings. So moving at the speed of your body, meeting your body where it is, both mentally and spiritually, emotionally, physically. Breathing can help reset those things and or be a resource for you. Regular sleep and rest, of course, whatever regular is defined as for you, and you can help flesh out your own relationship with sleep. We'll talk about that and rest in the future slides. Eating healthier foods, and there's an asterisk there next to healthier because healthy means whatever you have a healthy relationship with, right? When we say healthier, we don't want to imply a hierarchy or an externally generated sense of pressure or shame to eat certain foods, and that some foods are good, some foods are bad, or some are better than others. That's not true. Healthy foods are what you have a healthy relationship with and what you need more of in your life, right? And so things like intuitive eating and listening to your body. If you're hungry, then you should eat. What should you eat? Only you know that answer. And then of course, water. And that's something that I always have to remind myself to replenish throughout the day, to be drinking enough water. You've probably seen me already in the Zoom room. I have a water bottle from the NRC that Amanda gave me actually. So it is my lifesaver at work. So, and then this graphic here says self-care. It's not selfish, it shouldn't be optional. Right, and again, self-care is not selfish because it's the way that we exist and take up space. Without taking care of ourselves, the different parts of our body will diminish. And so let's start by thinking about our physical well-being. And so this is where your writing utensil will be helpful in a second. First, I'd like us all to, as a group, if we could just check in on our body and do a basic grounding exercise. So I find that when I get caught up or when I'm anxious or just moving really quickly in between meetings and obligations or classes, this is something you can do anywhere. When you're walking to class, when you're sitting at your desk, just thinking about 5 things that you can see. And so look around your environment right now and take the time to name 5 things. Count them out. Try to think about 4 things that you can touch. You don't have to touch them at the moment, but you can maybe feel your feet on the ground. You could feel the clothing on your shoulders. Maybe your hands are on your keyboard or are on a desk. Maybe you're touching your mask right now if you're in a public place, and just feeling that physical sensation of something touching your skin. So after you do that, think about 3 things that you can hear. You might be in a busy place. My voice might be one of these things. Your computer might be making a little bit of background noise. So just listen for those 3 things. 2 things that you can smell. This one always catches me off guard, but I want to remember to use all 5 of my senses. And so if that even takes like sniffing the back of your wrist or the underside of your wrist or your clothing, and it might smell like laundry detergent, or just breathing the air around you. Maybe you're in crisp, fresh air. And just taking note of that and taking in that air into your lungs. And then one thing that you can taste right now, and maybe the last thing that you ate, and or if you can imagine the feeling of tasting something. So you might be thinking about, oh, I'm eating lunch right now, or I'm going to eat lunch after this. What will that taste like? And just hold that in your mouth. So thank you for grounding into our physical body and checking in with our physical well-being with me. Next, I would like us to write about what wellness or aliveness or health, whatever health feels like and is to you, feels like in your body. So give us about 1 minute and just take 2 to 3 sentences. What does wellness feel like? If you're wrapping up your thoughts about that, then write down 2 to 3 things that you do and that you know that you can do to help support that feeling of that. This could be anything. It could be meditation. Maybe adrenaline was part of your wellness. And so you wrote going on a short run is something that you can do, or stepping into the water. Whatever feeling alive feels like for you, and then just listing something you can do to do that. I'll move on now to this next part. You're still going to be writing things down. If you think about your physical well-being, now I'd like us to orient and ground to, oftentimes with messaging about taking care of our physical health, there's a huge emphasis on maybe exercise or getting fit or in shape or building muscle, things like that. And that really isn't the lens or framework that we want to come into this with, because each of us knows our own body best, or has our own body, and our relationship with our body and our physical body, right, is sacred and is only our own. Nobody else has that relationship in the exact same way that we do. We can inform it. These cultural messages inform our relationship with our bodies. But I'd like us to ground and orient to basically ourselves, the ways that we hold our own physical bodies. So then create a list and or just journal for a little bit on what your priorities for your physical body are. And your priorities can grow and change, or grow might not even imply the right direction for you. Whatever lands with you, your priorities can change over time for your physical body. So maybe at one point in your life, your priorities for your physical body are getting well. Maybe you're sick. And so for a little bit of time, you're just like, I want to experience wellness, whatever that looks like. Another time it can be like, oh, I have a goal. I'm training for something, and that's my goal for my physical body. So think about what your priorities right now are. They might simply be, my priorities are remembering to eat so that I don't feel hunger throughout the day, and making sure I don't burn out, so that when I go home at the end of the day in the evening, I'm not exhausted and I don't fall asleep with the lights on at 8 p.m. Whatever your priorities are, please write them down. Okay. And then think about as well the ways that I want to feel about my physical body are. And so if we think about the school of thought on body neutrality, And are thinking that you're not responsible, right? You don't owe the world having a beautiful body, quote unquote, whatever beauty is externally defined as. You don't always need to like your body. You also don't need to hate it because it doesn't look a certain way or doesn't do a certain thing. Just think about, aside from all the external messaging, how do you want to feel about your physical body? Maybe you want to feel strong. Maybe you want to feel capable. Maybe you want to feel calm. Maybe you just want to feel at peace with it and just aware that you have a body more often and checking in with it and having more mindfulness. Just write down whatever your priorities are about how you want to feel about your physical body. That will guide, ultimately, right, the toolkit that you build for yourself. If you're thinking about and reflecting on that, now think about, I will support yourself with these through. So what will you do to help foster that? Maybe you want to feel neutral about your physical body. And so you're going to write affirmations or sticky notes on your mirror. Or you're going to actively, every time you feel shame about your body, you're going to combat it by thinking something positive and appreciating something about it. Maybe you want to not burn out by the end of the day. And so you're going to ask a friend to text you, hey, can you make sure that I eat lunch every single day? Or just ask me what I had for lunch throughout the week. Things like that. What are items that you can do to help center your priorities? So thank you for thinking through this list. Remember that this can be dynamic. You can always add to this, take things away from it. I'd like to move a little bit more into emotional and mental well-being. And so similarly with the previous slide, thinking about to supplement the thoughts, beliefs, feelings, ideas that we hold in our lived experiences that are housed in our emotional body and how we carry them, think about and write down what your core beliefs are. So if somebody were to ask you, what are your core 3 to 4 values? Think about the first 3 to 4 things that come to mind, write them down. Give us like 30 seconds. And then next, to help supplement these areas of our body, write down things that either I have grown in, write down I am proud of myself for these certain things, or things that you appreciate in yourself. So just take a moment to appreciate the components of your emotional and mental body. If you're wrapping up your thoughts there, you can continue. Lastly, just meditate on things that nobody can take away from you. Include some of those things, may be the things that you have grown in. Your growth process, how you've grown and changed over your life over the past year or 6 months, no one can take that away from you. You just did that. Like, you grew in the way that you knew that you grew in, right? So just name and appreciate the things that no one can take away from you. Thank you for writing those things down. So I hope that really grounds us in our emotional and mental bodies to begin with. And then next, here are some components of a toolkit that you can create and make, and hopefully we can write down and identify together for our emotional and mental well-being. And so ways to take care of ourselves, and this is also adapted from the NIH. They have emotional and general wellness toolkits that you can look at. This is slightly adapted from that. And so to take care of both of these parts of our bodies, we can ground and center. So just be aware of what perspective you're taking in life at the moment, how you're approaching it. Maybe you feel really rushed, and you can do that grounding exercise that we did earlier, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, etc. Then also reduce and release stress. So now think about, how does your body hold stress? Where is it stored? Maybe you feel really tight in your shoulders, or you feel anxiety in your chest when you get stressed. Maybe your eyes get tired. You're looking at a screen for a lot of the day. And so a lot of the times you think about, okay, like, don't be stressed or de-stress. A lot of times it's not realistic to not be stressed. Like, we are going to hold stress in some capacity in our bodies. What is a way that we can release it into our environment and or reduce it? Whether that's taking actions to be more organized so we don't forget something, or simply acknowledging and seeing, hey, I see that there's stress in my body. I acknowledge you. Now I don't have to feel you or hold you as tightly, right? So if you're feeling stressed right now, maybe just acknowledge that part of your body that feels that way. Maybe it's in your stomach and you feel butterflies, and just think to yourself, okay, thank you. I see you for holding that. Next, thinking about rest. What kind of rest do you need most right now? There are so many different types of rest. There is mental rest. There is physical rest. There is auditory rest, right? In which you just need to hear less things, or there's physical stimuli rest where you just don't want to look at your physical environment, but you can interact with it in other ways. There's emotional rest as well, in which you stop doing emotional labor for other people. There's also social rest, where maybe you're an introvert and you find talking to strangers a little bit draining, or you just find that in general. You can take a break from that, right? That is a form of rest. Write down and identify, what kind of rest do you need most right now? Is it that you need to be alone for a second? Is it that you need more sleep? Is it that you need physical rest and you've been walking around a lot today? And then strengthening social connections. So what is a social resource for you? Maybe talking to your sister is a social resource and you want to go do that at some point this week. So writing down, what is a social resource for you? Maybe it's talking to your best friend. Maybe it's checking in with somebody. Maybe it's just being alone. That could be a nice social resource where it's just you and your environment. Maybe it's making sure that you attend an in-person event so you get that in-person interaction. You can laugh and talk with people. Just identify what is a resource for you in that way. And then process what needs to be processed. So maybe you're carrying something with you, or you have a thought, or you're planning for something in the future. How does that feel to you ultimately, right? Like, what is basically, at the WRC, we like to call these our pink elephants. That's borrowed from Wes, the assistant director of the Pride Center. One of their favorite check-ins is, what is the pink elephant in the room in your personal life, your social life, and your work life, and your professional life, things like that. Basically, what are you carrying with you into all of these contexts? What can you not ignore, right? I might be able to show up and participate in a meeting, but I might be thinking in the back of my mind, oh, I had like a really bad argument earlier with like a friend and I'm feeling kind of hurt about it, but I also want to know how to take accountability. That's something that I just carry with me throughout the day, and is a pink elephant in my room. I might not bring it up in the space, but it's a part of me. And so just making sure that we make time to process those things so we don't have to carry them all the time if we don't need to, and or that they can move through us and you can move that energetically. So making sure that we make time for that. If you're carrying anything like that, maybe think about or look at your calendar. When is even 15 minutes to an hour where you can sit with that? Sitting with it may not be the way that you process. Maybe you're like, I'm going to go on a run and that's going to clear my head and that will help me process. And so that's what it is. Think about what that is for you. And then Lastly, to be mindful, and mindfulness can look different for every single person. So what awareness can you exercise today? Maybe that awareness is now throughout the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes you've been together, you're more aware of how you're doing. You're aware of what kind of rest that you need. You checked in with what you need to process. You've grounded and centered a bit. Or maybe your awareness is simply that, oh, like I'm noticing that I'm having this intrusive thought later throughout today. And just checking in with yourself and being aware of how you're feeling, your state of mind, your state of being. There's parts of that. And then lastly, we want to move into preserving. So what are ways in which previously on the last slide, and what we've been doing is thinking of ways that we can each take care of ourselves and help build this toolkit together for our own well-being. How can we help support our own individual efforts, right? In community with other people, hold ourselves accountable, but also feel care externally. We can't do this work alone, and we can't care for ourselves necessarily in isolation or in silos. And so thinking about preserving, I want us to try an exercise of just pod mapping. This was developed by Mia Mingus for the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective. They're an amazing resource, amazing collective that focuses on transformative and restorative justice. And this is an exercise that was developed through teaching and practicing accountability and transformative justice, specifically juxtaposed against a more carceral and or punitive form of justice in repairing harm. That being said, pod mapping is also a resource for our own spiritual and holistic well-being. And so let's think about pod mapping is basically a way of orienting and mapping visually our community and our pod. What is a pod? A pod is our relationships which hold us safe. So who are the people and relationships in your life that make you feel safe? If I say the word safe, who comes to mind? These are also relationships that hold us accountable to ourselves and our best well-being and to others. They help us be brave at the same time too, right? To show up as our full selves. They resource us. So these relationships are resources. If I know that I'm feeling down or I'm feeling depleted, I can send this person a message and be like, hey, I'm feeling kind of low energy today. Can you, I don't know, send me some encouragement? Can we get coffee together? Something like that. And then these relationships center and ground us, right? If you think about, if you feel grounded to your purpose in this life, who else is in that with you, right? Who are those people that help you do your life's purpose? And then related to transformative justice, your pod is also made up of the people that you would call on if violence, harm, or abuse happened to you. So if you were hurt or something happened, who would you turn to? Or it's also the people that you would call on if you wanted support in taking accountability for violence, harm, or abuse that you've done, or if you've witnessed violence of some kind. So ultimately in these situations where harm occurs and somebody's capacity and energy is depleted, we're trying to restore that, who would you call on for support in that? You can have multiple pods, and so the people that you call on to support you when you're being harmed might not be the same people you call on to support you when you have done harm, vice versa. One way that I like to think about this, that might land, might not land with you. I would call different people if my car broke down and I were stranded and I were afraid in that situation, versus if I got really vulnerable and I wanted to disclose and being like, hey, I got in an argument earlier and I said something that I think was really hurtful. How should I talk to that person to apologize? Can I practice that apology with you? I would do that with two very different people, two different circles. Oh, sorry, did somebody unmute? Or that could have just been me, okay. And then in general, pod people are often those you have relationship and trust with, though everyone has different criteria for their pods. Okay, and so most people have a few solid and dependable relationships in their lives. I do want to stress not everybody has access to relationships like this because of structural violence, because of the context that we live in. Not everybody is able to necessarily have access to these relationships. I do want to know, as part of Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective's practice and what Mia Mingus has written around pods and transformative justice, is that most of us have less people that we could call on to take accountability for harm that they have done than for the harm that has happened to them. So basically that's saying of, if somebody hurts me, I might be much more comfortable and have more people that I can tell about that harm and be like, hey, this person did this and I feel really betrayed, than if I were to open up to those people and say like, hey, I betrayed this person and I'm feeling kind of iffy about it. Can you help me take accountability and or work through this with me? And so sometimes we think that the people in our pods have to have the same politics as us or have the same feelings or also believe in the same things that we believe in. Ultimately, a lot of times what we find is that relationship and trust, not always political analysis, continue to be two of the most important factors in transformative justice or in pods. When you think about repairing and restoring our bodies, restoring our trust, restoring our relationships with other people, it's not always that we see the world eye to eye, right? It's that we have trust with each other to be in a relational space. It's that I have a trusting, safe relationship with you, and I can trust to be next to you ultimately, even if we don't necessarily have the same worldview or we come from two very different places. And then lastly, pod people don't neatly fall along traditional lines. So you're not obligated to feel like your immediate family or your best friends are in your pods or who you spend most of your time with. They may not be your pod people. It may be a mentor or somebody that you talk to infrequently, but you have a very solid, trusting relationship with them where you know that you could, in some way, they resource your life, right? And they help support you. And so what we'll do then, if you still have that piece of paper and or something to write with, we're going to do pod mapping. So you can see on the top right corner what this is going to look like. If you could just write your name in the center of your paper, and then you can do this in 3 different colors or in any way that you might see fit. I would like to think about color 1 will be, think about your first layer of your pod. So that's that bolded circles around your name. A handful of 3 to 6 people who are your pod. They're these people that come to mind when you think about trust, safety, and these relationships that you want to. Okay. And the next, think about the next layer, the dotted lines in the top right corner, are people who are movable. So these are people who could be in your inner pod that you experience lots of trust and accountability and maybe even dialogue with, but they need a little more work. So you need to invest a little more into that relationship if they were to come into your pod. So you might need to build more relationship or trust with them, have a particular conversation with them maybe to get to know them more, or just spend more time with them. You take your time moving through this. I know there's no right or wrong answer either. This can also change. I had to do this exercise like 8 months ago with the WRC when we did this at like an all staff training, and my pod is so different now. I just found my old sheet of paper in which I did it, and it's a lot of different names where people move in and out of these different layers. And so lastly, thinking about the big circles at the edge of your paper, these are going to be not necessarily people, they could be people, but they're networks, communities, groups, institutions, formal or informal, right? It could be your student club, it could be your resource center that you work at, it could be one that you visited, that could be resources for you, right? So it could be any of those institutionalized or formal communities or groups, or it could just be like, hey, 3 of my friends are taking the same class together and we sometimes study, or we check in on GroupMe about our upcoming quizzes. That could be a group that's a support for you. And so that's right on the fringes of your pod and something that is still a resource and something you can depend on and trust, but it's not in your inner circle necessarily. So just write whatever those things are. I'd also like to note the same reasons why you put somebody into one of these circles doesn't have to be the same reason you put someone else in the same layer or circle. You might be like, I really feel a deep connection with this person and they're going to be in my inner pod, but I don't share a lot of those same feelings as with somebody else. It's also in my inner pod because I have a very different relationship with them. And that is so valid and okay. Our pod people can look like very diverse relationships, and they might not even know each other. Maybe they don't even get along with each other, or you don't think they would if you introduce them. It's gonna be all of these things. I also feel like this is a helpful exercise if you're ever feeling isolated and or you want to reground, or maybe you feel, I don't know, like you need more motivation, or if you ever feel like low self-esteem. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write down again what my core values are, like we did earlier, in the center of my paper, and write my own self down, and then thinking about who I believe in and who I trust in this life to help support me in fulfilling my own values. So this is an exercise you can take with you too. Okay. And then so you can close that out, but ultimately we should like to touch base. And here's an example of a way that you can make a plan. We did various toolkit exercises today, but you can create a self-care plan, right? Again, for your mind, body, spirit, writing down supportive people in your life like we just did in pod mapping, and then thinking about what you want to accomplish, right? So what are your priorities for all of your self-care, and for your mind, your body, your spirit? What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to feel? Things like that. I know this is something you can do. You can take 3 minutes on it. You could take a 15-minute break. You can do this whenever. And so this concludes like the end of our program, but I would like, if you'd like to close out, for everyone to share maybe how they're feeling and a word or a phrase and a takeaway that you got from going through this together. I'll stop the recording.